What's up, everyone, and welcome back to JS Outdoors. Today I want to spend a little bit of time talking about generators. Generators are important because inevitably power will go out. It doesn't matter if it's inclement weather, natural disaster, anything of the likes, but there is going to be a time where you're going to be out with power and you're going to want to be able to replace that power. Generators are a great resource for that. Generators do range between a couple $100 all the way up to like $10,000, $15,000 for some of the standby units that are actually connected to your home. So hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to make a better decision on what your situation will need regarding generators. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be referring to three different styles of generators. The first generator is going to be the most expensive option, and that's going to be the generator that's fixed to your home, or also referred to as a standby generator. These generators can range anywhere from $5,000 all the way up to $20,000, $30,000, just depending on the unit that you can get. It can also be more than that. These are the most expensive option. However, this is going to be something that will be able to sustain usually power to your entire home in times where power is cut off to your home. The second two types of generators we're going to be talking about are inverter generators and what I refer to as standard generators. Both of these generators are portable, however, there are a couple differences on how they operate. Inverter generators operate very similarly to the standard generator. However, that AC current that's created from the operation of the generator gets transferred into DC, or direct current power. And then from there, that gets regenerated back into AC and then put onto the board where you have your extension cords or different tools plugged in. What that's going to do is it's going to take that noisy up and down fluctuation of the original AC created from that generator, it's going to stabilize it into DC, and then it's going to redistribute it as AC, which is going to create more of an even power source for you. So you're going to see a reduction in your fluctuation basically at the board where all of your tools are operating off of. The standard generator is the cheapest option, it's the loudest option, but usually it's the one that most people go with just because of the financial aspect of it. There is some sort of cost association and savings regarding this generator. Both the inverter and standard generators are great options, especially for homeowners who aren't looking to power their entire house and who are looking to get a generator that can fit within their budget. The inverter generator going to be the more stable option, slightly quieter option, however slightly more expensive option, opposed to the standard generator, which is going to be your cheapest option, a little bit louder, but do operate very similarly. Alright, so we've talked about the couple different kinds of generators you can purchase. Now, what size do we need to go with? What we're looking for is we're looking for watts. We're looking for running watts, and we're also looking for the starting watts. This is going to be for your generator. It's also going to be for the different tools or appliances, whatever it is that you want to run during that power outage. We need to identify what load that's going to create during operation. Now, there are two different numbers that we're looking for in watts. We're looking at the startup, and we're also looking at the running. So these are going to be a little bit different. The startup is going to be the peak of that consumption of wattage, and then the running time is going to be somewhat of a diminished rate from that startup. So we want to make sure that everything that we're running at its peak, so our startup time, doesn't exceed the amount of runtime in wattage that the generator has. Here's a couple examples that I found that might be helpful. Standard coffee maker, we're looking at 600 to 1200 watts depending on the size you have. A toaster oven's looking at 1200 watts. Refrigerator, 750. One of the chest freezers is about 600. A house fan, 120 watts. Phone charger, about 10 watts. A laptop charger, looking at about 85. Some tools that you might be using: an angle grinder, 900 watts, a chop saw, 1800 watts, and a 1 horsepower air compressor is looking at 2000 watts. Now, something to kind of look at for the home wise is, are you on a well? So well pumps, if you're running a 3rd horsepower well pump, you're looking at between 1400 and 3000 watts on a startup. For the half horsepower pump, you're looking at anywhere between 2100 to 4000 watts startup. And then for an air conditioner, let's say like it is summer, you want to run an air conditioner, for roughly 8,000 BTU AC unit, you're looking anywhere between 2200 and 5000 watts as a startup. So with this information, you want to kind of identify, in a worst case scenario, what do I absolutely need to survive? What do I absolutely need to keep myself comfortable and continuing throughout this time while power is down? You want to take all of those tools that you would like to use at that time, take their max wattage, add that all up, and that should give you generally what size generator you need. Now, this is going to be kind of a gut check for all of you out there because you're going to start seeing that number climb, and you might need to start thinking about what you really do need in a situation like that. All right, I've got 3 very easy formulas for you guys. This will help you figure out the difference between the amps, the volts, or the watts that your appliance or tool requires. So the first one I have here is for watts. So if you want to find watts, you take the amps, times it by the volts, and then that'll give you the watts. Watts are usually how most generators are labeled for the amount of power that they output. So that's going to be your most frequent conversion. Now the next one we have is amps. So if you have your watts, you can divide that by the volts, and then that'll give you how many amps. The third is going to be for the volts. So you take your watts, you divide it by your amps, and that'll tell you how many volts you need. Sometimes manufacturers only give you 1 or 2 of those, so it's usually the volts and the amps. And you need to figure out what the watts are. So these formulas should help you figure out what generator size you need, and then when we get into this next section, which is power cords, it'll help you determine which gauge wire to buy as well. A consideration when trying to figure out what size generator you need is to figure out what elevation above sea level you'll be operating it at. A good rule of thumb is that with every 1,000 feet of elevation, you can expect roughly a 3.5% reduction in the operating power that generator is going to produce. All right, so you've got your generator, but what size power cord do you need? Many people don't know that there are different sizes. So the sizes are in correlation to the internal wires within that extension cord, and they run through a sizing chart called gauges. Now the standard gauges that you'll see will fluctuate between 16 gauge being a smaller gauge wire or a smaller internal wire up to the 10 gauge, which is going to be a lot larger. For standard reference, once you figure out how many amps your electronics is going to draw, you can think about a 16 gauge cord will take roughly 10 amps. That's about what its rating is. 14 gauge cord will be about 13 amps. 12 gauge at 15 amps, and then the 10 gauge all the way up to 20 amps. Another good consideration is surge protectors. So surge protectors can be a single inline surge protector, or it can be like what you use for your home office, which is that block that has the little rocker on off switch. What that'll do is that'll trip if there's any high spike in output to your electronics, and that will shut off the power supply to them, hopefully saving it and not damaging that sensitive electronic. Alright, so all the cords you buy will come with tags, both showing the volts amperage right here, and then a safety tag. This is required for them to be sold in the United States. As we all know, these will get ripped off or damaged, so it's difficult to see. On the jacketing, which is the outside coating of this cord, they'll be imprinted on there what gauge wire, the max volts rating it is. So when you're trying to figure out if your existing cords are going to be capable of running your electronic and all of the tags are missing, make sure to look at the exterior jacketing to try to figure out exactly what that cord's rating is. Alright, like you hear a lot and usually that you don't do, it's always good to check out the manual that comes with it. Manuals are nice because usually if the company's done it right, They have troubleshooting. They have exploded views where you can get consumable parts or broken parts for repair. And then they also have maintenance items. So, how to change the oil in it, how to check the spark plug, what to set the spark plug gap to. So, reading this manual is going to give you the background information to help you sustain yourself throughout the life of that unit. On the topic of parts, it's important to have spare parts on hand at all times. Really, what this does is it alleviates the point for when you're down in a situation. Usually, I don't know, a natural disaster, power outage that lasts a couple of days, snowstorm, whatever it is, you don't have time to wait for them to ship a part and get on the phone with customer service. So having those parts on hand is going to allow you to quickly change them out and then put your unit back up and running so that it can sustain you and do the job in which you intended it for in the first place. Some spare parts to consider having on hand at all times are spark plugs, extra oil, fuel lines, extra fuel, and some fuel stabilizer. These things can kind of generally get you by. Some others to consider would be replacement carburetor, because a lot of times those get gummed up and can be one of the major fail points for you. So the manual that I have does not have the exploded views or the part numbers in there. That can be problematic if you are looking to get replacement parts started. You don't have access to the internet. Now, usually you can't order anything unless you have access to the internet, but it is a lot easier to have the exploded views and parts lists printed out. What I like to do is I like to print them out, and then I like to highlight line items that are consumables in one color, and then highlight line items that are maybe important replacement parts that I'll need in the future in a different color, so that way I can easily identify what parts I'll need when I go to call and make an order. A very important item to keep in mind is in a situation where you're using this, it's usually natural disaster, multiple days without electricity, and people are starting to panic and worry, especially the people who aren't prepared, people who don't have generators, people who don't have extra food. And that's when things like theft and violence occur. So one thing that I always keep on my generator is a lock. Now, this lock, if someone really wants to get the generator, they're going to be able to access it. But what it's doing is it's slowing down that process. I should be able to hear someone who's trying to steal it, and when they're fighting with that, I'll be able to come out and engage that individual, hopefully keeping them from taking or damaging my generator. Another thing that you're doing when you're running your generator during inclement times is you're projecting, almost screaming out to your neighbors saying, hey, I am prepared and I have everything I need to sustain myself. Now, if situations become dire and people are without food or heat for a couple days or a week, depending on the individual that you're encountering, that can be problematic to you because they might want to try to take what you have. So keep in mind when you're running this equipment that you are projecting to the world saying, hey, look at what I have. So good considerations to have is understand what your local laws and regulations are in regards to personal and self-defense, and also understand how to use tools in order to protect yourself and your loved ones. Because if situations do become dire and the worst comes to worst, you want to make sure that you have the ability to protect yourselves and the ones that you care about. Alright, so we're out in the shed next to the house, and I just kind of wanted to show you how I have this stored. So right next to the entrance door to the shed, I had created some shelving, and before I made the shelving, I took measurements of stuff that I wanted to stow under it. So this is the compartment designated for the generator. It slides easily in and out from there, and it tucks it away so that it's not in the way when I'm trying to do stuff or get stuff out of the shed. Next to it is the spare fuel. Spare fuel is here, and away from that, always stored here is where I usually have extension cords. So everything has a place in the shed. Everything's easily accessible, making it really simple to deploy this in a situation where the power is out and I need power. Alright guys, so hopefully that helped you out a little bit if you're looking to buy a generator. I just wanted to learn a little bit more about generators. That's my personal take on the situation involving generators. There's a lot more that could be said regarding that as well. So if you want to see more, let us know, and we'll put out more videos specifically tailored to what you're looking for. The channel is growing, and it's all because of you guys, and I appreciate it. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. Help us get our numbers up so that way we can keep putting out some more content for you guys. Please let us know what you want to see next. We have a couple things that we have ideas on what we want to shoot, but I mean, ultimately this content's for you guys. So let us know in the comments what you want to see next, and we'll try to make it happen for you. Also, be sure to check out the Facebook and Instagram pages at JS Outdoors LLC. And we also have a website with not much on it, but Oregon residents, we're looking to start our CHL classes soon. That website is going to be jsoutdoorsllc.com. Thanks you all for watching. We'll see you next time.